Throughout time, a consistent thread across speedrunning has been overcoming one's own limitations. Players have rolled past the speed of sound, gamers have side-flipped around levels, and runners have even lag-reduced across an entire island. Our story today hardly needs an introduction. It's a story that binds us all, one of giant towers and hidden cities, a story of unifying people through the power of three, a story of how runners skipped the biggest barrier in perhaps all of speedrun history. We are talking about Spider-Man 2 Pizza Percent. It's pizza time, paisanos. Grab a slice and sit back. A story that was once need to know is now being delivered to you in 30 minutes or less. This video is the yeast we could do. For all the speedrun aficionados out there, this story has everything. Cheesy costumes, saucy gameplay, and served on a New York-style crust. Enter the Spider-Verse where Tobey Maguire is not afraid to strut his stuff. If you're lactose intolerant, this pie might not be for you. If these puns were too much for you, it's about to get cheesier. Welcome to Speed Talks. The start of the new millennium brought about a film revolution like never before, the rise of superhero movies. For the first time ever, Marvel's Spider-Man was making his way to the silver screen, this time with a fresh coat of paint and a new frontman in Tobey Maguire. With the critical success of the new film series, the inevitable video game adaptation released alongside each game in the new Spider-Man trilogy. In this video, we'll be covering the second game in the trilogy for one reason: pizza. While some content had to be cut from the final release in order to ship the game on time, the developers made sure to leave in the best part of the game. Knowing that gamers would be clamoring for more pizza-related gameplay, the development team at Treyarch left in a series of side missions where the player has to quickly and safely deliver hot za to the citizens of New York City. Yes, the same studio that developed Call of Duty Zombies also made this fantastic game. The owner of the restaurant, Mr. Aziz, can't say no to any paying customers. It's up to Peter Parker to quickly bring freshly made pies to civilians in alleyways, on scaffolding, and even on top of the Empire State Building, all within 3 minutes and without jostling the product too much. You see, Spidey's patented web sling and acrobatics can result in flipping the pizza too much, and as we all know, pizza doesn't like being flipped. With 20 individual missions and a lot of slices to hand out, players have quite the order to fill in this fast-paced minigame. But if there's anyone who likes fast-paced gameplay, it's speedrunners. Hear that bell? It's pizza time. Since the game's early history, any percent was the only officially recognized category in the community. Following the game's main story, any percent consisted of following Peter Parker's struggles to handle his secret double life. His crime-fighting hobby has had far-reaching effects on his personal life, and Peter is struggling to juggle it all. Over the course of the game, Spider-Man has to deal with his crush Mary Jane getting engaged to someone else, his friend Harry Osborn trying to kill him, and his mentor Dr. Octavius turning into a maniacal supervillain. New to the scene, runner Sly Finkleton began pushing his times down in February of 2016. After a few weeks of practice and attempts, Sly was able to take a respectable 3rd place on the board. Happy with how far he'd come, Sly wanted to celebrate with something a little different. Remembering that the game had the pizza delivery side missions, Sly challenged himself to complete all 20 of these deliveries as fast as possible. And thus, the legendary Pizza Percent category was born.
I had done the missions once before as a child. It was almost a blind speedrun, and I learned full force just how difficult Pizza Percent is to a newcomer.
Despite not having played the missions in years, Sly was skilled enough to adapt on the fly. Delivering pies isn't easy though. Even with indicators showing the locations of all the paying customers, navigating the cityscape and returning home on time proved to be a hefty challenge for this pizza prince. The first 2/3 of the run are simple enough. With plenty of time and only a few customers, each mission is pretty straightforward. However, the difficulty ramps way up around mission 15. Starting on 15, customers start appearing in dangerous and difficult places, throwing a wrench in the standard game plan. The timers on these missions are also more difficult and require tighter and cleaner movement to make it on time. This difficulty spike was enough to trip up Sly a few times, as he failed missions 15, 18, and 20, failing the last two twice. In the end, Sly finished his victory lap in 45 minutes and 21 seconds on February 26, 2016.
To keep you on, eh? Keep up the good work and you will have a bright future here.
If you're happy, I'm happy.
My heart rate's going so fast.
Try as he might, Sly just wasn't prepared for the grueling gauntlet that is delivering pizzas. He was a speedrunner, not a delivery boy. He'd need to spend some time practicing on his prov alone before he was ready for the task. Leaving the pizza fever dream behind him, Sly went back to AnyPercent to hone his skills. While Sly was mid-training montage, a rival delivery boy picked up Sly's shifts. Thinx the Clown was an Australian runner who took the Spiderman leaderboard by storm. Not fond of live streaming, Thinx was an offline silent killer. Thinx spent his free time practicing and perfecting the game in the shadows, ambushing the community with his cutting-edge times without warning.
For the most part, he doesn't stream, so he'll just post this run that he got, and it's just usually he's probably if he put his mind to it, he probably has the highest skill ceiling out of any Spider-Man runner. Maybe that's just from that mysterious aura that he's had.
After suddenly taking the AnyPercent record, Thinx went on a victory lap of his own. With his more refined movement skills, Thinx swung in and snatched up Sly's Pizza Percent record as well. Deftly delivering delicious dinner to the denizens of New York City, Thinx clearly has more experience in the field. Where Sly would bump into buildings and swing too close to the ground, Thinx had better control of Spidey's swing. Despite his expertise, Thinx still fails the last mission and has to retry. Thinx served up a 37-12 on June 28th, just a few months after Sly invented the category. Just as quickly as he had appeared, Thinx dropped a smokescreen and retreated back into the shadows once again. 9 months later, Thinx's pie had been in the oven long enough. After tossing dough and sampling sauce for the better part of a year, Thinx was ready to come back to try his hand at pizza delivery once again. Thinx has one thing on his mind as he tests his mettle once more: no failed missions. Both Sly and Thinx had blemishes on their records: failure to deliver the goods on time. Nobody wants to eat lukewarm pizza with the cheese stuck to the top of the box, even if it is Spider-Man delivering it. On this particular delivery run, Thinx has a smoother early game, gaining time on his previous personal record. The first 10 missions are pretty simple and straightforward. However, while it's not likely to fail these missions, there's plenty of time to lose for those who weren't careful. Heading into the back half, Thinx is 46 seconds ahead. Much like Sly's attempts, Thinx has trouble with missions 15 and 18. After running the bases, he slides into home plate with only a second remaining on the clock, both times. He's cutting it close, but Thinx is true to his word. Completing every mission on the first try, Thinx dishes out the first no-fails run with a 33:04. Thinx was now 12 minutes ahead of Sly, the original pizza boy, but Sly was nowhere to be seen. Whatever happened to our Prince of Pizza? Sly had been working on his overall game plan and his pizza delivery tactics in the years since his first run. With his honor on the line, Sly knew he had to come back to prove to Mr. Aziz that he was the best pizza delivery boy this side of the Hudson. After a year of practicing pizza perfection, Sly came back to Pizza Percent with a bang. On his first run back, Sly matches Thinx's no-fail style and claps back with a 31:15, an almost 2-minute improvement.
That's the world record, baby.
By now, the writing was on the wall. The world record speedrun time for delivering pizza was at 31 minutes. Sly had heard the words of the wise sages. He had read the tapestry of fates. Sly had a new goal, a prophecy to fulfill. 30 minutes or less. But was Sly, nay, was anyone up to the task? Not long after his glorious return to pizza delivery, Sly snagged a 30:44 in the category.
Oh, it's over. Maybe? Oh my god. Less than a second, dude.
Pretty good this time. Pizzas were delivered on time, and all my customers are happy.
I had less than a second
Make
left.
sure you keep this up, and maybe you'll get a bonus.
Oh, there's that at least.
Thanks, Mr. Aziz.
Thanks, Mr. Aziz.
30 seconds closer to the great end goal, but still 44 seconds away. Sly wasn't ready to go the last mile. He'd need to spend more time mastering the mystic pizza arts. An interesting aspect of Pizza Percent is that it's done on a completed save file, which has all of the game's upgrades unlocked. One of these upgrades is swing speed, which determines how fast Spidey moves while swinging around the city. For any percent, runners only get up to level 6 swing speed, but there are technically 8 levels in total. As such, Pizza Percent plays on swing speed 8 and has faster and more difficult movement. While most runners learn and practice in any percent, Pizza Percent is where they have to put what they've learned to the ultimate test. In order to answer the call, Sly needed to spend more time training. Almost a year to the day later, Sly returns to the Big Apple, ready to take on the world. His extensive training has paid off. Sly is notably more in control of his abilities, using more deliberate swings as he gracefully maneuvers between buildings. While Sly has a bit of a rough start, he quickly gets the ball rolling. By the end of Mission 10, Sly is 41 seconds ahead, essentially on pace for the 30-minute time. But he was just getting started. By Mission 15, he's a full minute ahead. Sly knows this is it. As long as he doesn't choke out the final missions, the 30 minutes or less run is in the bag. Sly is ready to retire as soon as he clinches out this godlike run. A glorious end is in sight, and Sly turns up the heat even more. He saves 10 seconds, then another 10, then 15. With a resounding gold split on Mission 20, Sly finishes the run 2 full minutes ahead, a 28:43.
Bitch. Not sub 20, not sub 30, sub 29. You know that's the guarantee, right? 29 minutes or less. It's not 30 minutes or less. That was why I threw all those runs earlier, because they weren't fast enough to get sub 29. So, fuck you.
But really, that was just a culmination of like the past year of experience. Like, the reason why it doesn't, these Pizza Percent runs are so far apart is because I'm learning the game in other ways in between them, and Pizza Percent is kind of where I come back to show it off.
This was truly groundbreaking. The Prince of Pizza had fulfilled the age-old adage. Finally, all was right in the world. Having appeased the pizza prophets, Sly's mission was complete. He was happy to let the dough rest. If this was the end of our story, we could wrap this up and put a nice and neat bow on the whole thing. A story about a couple of crazy kids who donned the pizza delivery uniform and brought delicious pizza to a city in need. An epic tale of a prophecy, a journey to complete the missions in 30 minutes or less. But this isn't, and we can't. There is one more player to introduce. Meet By the Way I Say. By the Way spends most of his time working on his YouTube channel, a collection of stop-motion animations featuring characters from all kinds of video games, cartoons, and anime. But behind the camera lies a dark secret, knowledge kept hidden away from the general public. You see, By the Way I Say is a YouTuber by day, but by night, By the Way suits up and fights crime. Yes, that's right. By the Way, I say, is the real McCoy, the genuine article. By the Way is Spider-Man. Hiding his true identity, By the Way is a living and breathing superhero. One of Spidey's powers is his superhuman spider sense, which tells him when something isn't right. On the night that Sly got the 2843, By the Way knew something was off.
Okay, so I was on patrol one night when suddenly my spider sense started tingling. And it wasn't just any ordinary spider sense, it was an internal clock. And that clock was telling me that someone had gone under 30 minutes. And at that point I knew. It was pizza time.
When Sly finally delivered all of the pizzas in 30 minutes or less, By the Way's Spidey sense started tingling. There was finally somebody out in the world who could compete with the real-life Spider-Man in a video game. By the Way was going to put Sly to the test. By the Way had a lot of work to do to get in shape. He let us in on his training regimen as he prepared a suitable challenge for his opponent.
I got the beating up the baddies stuff that counts as a workout, and the daily 800 laps around the island, and don't forget about the mandatory 10 leaps off the Empire State Building, of course. Gotta keep those reaction times in check.
Before the end of the year, the superhero delivery boy himself was ready to deliver a hot and ready world record, the likes of which the world had never seen. In By the Way's run, the first thing you'll notice is the intentional routing for each mission. Having spent years of his life fighting crime in New York, By the Way knew the city like the back of his web-slinging hand. Knowing exactly which alleyways to go down, which streets to fly over, and which buildings to swing from, he was a pizza-delivering machine. One of the most important changes in his routing was his return path back to the restaurant at the end of every mission. Because of the lack of buildings on the western side of the street, there's nothing to swing from when returning the bag to Mr. Aziz from this side. Sly and Thinx resorted to just jumping their way back to the end goal, but it was sloppy and inefficient. By the Way made sure that every time he was coming back from this side of the store, he'd approach from the large green plaza and swing from the only tall building in the area, sending him on the perfect launch path to the end. No more stumbling and fumbling on the Southwest Pier. By the Way saved precious seconds on every mission with this return. Lastly, By the Way had better control of his web swings and consistently landed right on target for his deliveries. Without constantly over or undershooting the customer, he could gracefully pivot to the next objective.
By the Way's style of movement was more clean. He would do these simpler, longer swings, which might have a slightly lower skill ceiling, but it benefits swing speed 8, which is so ridiculously fast and hard to control that just slowing down just a little bit to get some of that control allowed him to make some real deliberate moves to get through the missions.
The web-slinging wizard finished his run with a time of 25:53, almost 3 minutes faster than Sly.
Dang, bro. That's good.
The pizza god himself came down to grace the mortals of the realm with just a slice of his power. As soon as he had appeared, our hero took to the skyline and dashed off into the night. The Spider-Man 2 speedrunners were left in awe. Picking up his jaw from the proverbial floor, Sly was kicking himself for his retiring remarks. Not only did the real Spider-Man show up to speedrun his game, he destroyed Sly's monumental run. Now that someone had beaten his time, Sly had to reclaim his honor and come back to pizza delivery. Learning from the master himself, Sly had to step up his movement game to compete with the real deal, a task he was more than willing to take on. It wasn't going to be easy though. It would take 10 months before Sly was finally ready to take the title back. On October 31st, Sly started his run. Racing against his current 26:13 PB, he was only 20 seconds off of By the Way's time. By mission 13, he was comfortably ahead by 26 seconds, world record pace. Unfortunately, Sly couldn't hold on to the lead he had and lost most of that time by mission 18. But it wasn't over. In a flash, Sly musters up the speed and grace to get solid gold splits on both 19 and 20, enough to save a little more than 20 seconds. He did it. A 25:52.9, world record by fractions of a second.
What? Did that really world record? Dang.
Sly had taken back the crown, but this wasn't a resounding victory. Almost as if by accident, Sly had snuck in the victory with the photo finish. With so much time lost in the middle of the run, Sly couldn't walk away in good conscience just yet. He at least had to get a 25:40x time. After a few days of grinding, he would achieve that with a 25:46, a small but significant improvement over his last run. This run felt like a victory.
So I got that 25:46, and I was like, all right, good. That's a solid enough one that it doesn't look like a fluke.
But the pizza weighed heavy on Sly's soul. By the Way had shown Sly that more minute barriers could be broken. There was still so much more sauce in the pot. Sly's PB alone easily lost over 30 seconds or more to poor movement. Again, he couldn't walk away just yet. After taking a break for a few months, Sly was ready to grind. Pretty quickly, he was able to cook up a 25:09 around the end of April.
Yeah, you know I'm PBing. Boom. Let's go. Fuck yeah.
The end was in sight. With only 10 more seconds to go, Sly set his sights on the sub-25. The days of shaving minutes off the time were gone. Sly was now at a point where seconds were hard to come by. Grinding day after day, he was clocking in hours of attempts. His hard work would eventually pay off. After 2 weeks of intense delivery action, Sly gets a run off to a good start. The first 10 missions end up being a wash, as he saves and loses time all over and ends up even with his PB. But as you probably know by now, the back half is where the real fun begins. After making his way back into the green, Sly is finally ahead of his best time, if only by a few seconds. Granted, he only needs to save 10 seconds to clutch out the 24. As if fueled by the pizza he's delivering, Sly gets 2 gold splits back to back on missions 17 and 18, putting him comfortably ahead by 15 seconds. It all comes down to this. With a practiced hand and a steadfast heart, Sly holds on tight to the time save and pulls a hot 24:55 out of the oven.
A 24? The 24? Let's fucking go, dude. Ah, yes. Ah, that was like the perfect amount of grinding to do for a PB.
This is where the record stands today. So where do we go from here? By the Way has taken notice of Sly's work and could potentially come back to beat his time. Maybe Thinx or another Spider-Man runner will join into the fray. Or maybe Sly himself will come back to do another victory lap. Based on his splits, a sub-24 seems pretty doable, although daunting. Also, a Pizza Percent task was released on Christmas of 2020 by Nate the Man 223, clocking in at 19 minutes and 40 seconds. With perfect precision, the task shows off smooth drive-by deliveries, optimal lines, and fearless dives. Maybe one day, we'll see humans reach something close to this level of precision. It's been a long journey. Who would have thought that this pizza meme would have brought us here? A tale of a determined delivery boy, a clown, and a stop-motion animator. A story of one man's promise to deliver hot and ready pizza to a hungry city. If you're ever in New York and you see the webhead himself, just know, in some dark alley or on the roof of some skyscraper, it's pizza time. Hey, thanks for watching our video. If you want to join the community, check out our Discord. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon. It really helps. Thanks.